Hello and welcome everyone to episode 126 of DoubleDM podcast. I am, as always, your host, Emil. I am here with my co-host, Niels. How are you doing?
Yeah, it could be better. Still a bit sick, but overall, can't complain.
Sickness is the word of the week because there's a very sick thing coming out tomorrow on Tuesday, the 1st of August, and that is, Niels, a good product by our friends at Homie and the Dude.
Hell
Tom
yeah.
and Bodhi have created something incredible. The Sky Zephyrs Kickstarter, which is gonna give you a swashbuckling, roguish audacity-based, filled airship combat system. Niels, what do you think about it?
Yeah, from all of the things that Tom and Bodhi told us and what I've seen, Sky Zephyrs really is amazing, and it is a nuanced and complex yet easy to understand airship combat system, which I quite like because, yeah, obviously you have all the things, all the tools you need, but easy to access. And it lets you build your own fucking airship. How amazing is that? And it provides easy to understand 3D combat rules to make 3D combat more accessible with different heights and the distances being easier to grasp. There's still so much more to explore for you, so I can't wait. But what do you think about it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, first of all, the rules are tight and robust from what I've seen. It looks amazing. Even though the rules are tight and robust, it still gives you the full creative freedom of swashbuckling adventures that you want. And then it also sets them among the skies.
Yeah.
As mentioned, they've got shipbuilding and airship combat rules, but they've got so much more. They really thought of everything you need to add this whole new dimension to your games. And personally, I can guarantee you, from what I've seen and heard and talked to them about, if you thought of it for airship combat, Tom and Bodhi have also thought of it and therefore put it in their books. The Kickstarter is out tomorrow when you listen to this episode on release day. There's going to be a link in the description that is going to send you right to the Kickstarter page. And if you use that link, you're supporting DoubleDM in the process. It's not going to be an extra charge for you. It's just going to be a little extra for us as creators. There's no extra charges for you. It's the same Kickstarter. You get the same content. And if you use the early bird prices, which are only available for the first 24 hours, you're going to get even more content for less amount of money. So there's literally nothing stopping you from backing this tomorrow or instantly when you listen to this.
Yeah, you should. It's an amazing thing.
Yeah.
I really can't wait. This will elevate my games so much more.
Right, we have to say that we are getting compensated for what we're doing in advertising this project for them, because the ref link that you can use in our descriptions is gonna give back to us, and that is then still a product placement as per at least German laws that we have to abide by. So we have to say that we have to say that we are promoting the project because we might be getting something back from it. However, I will still buy the product myself on day one because I just cannot wait. I've seen the amazing stuff Tom and Bodhi do, and I just cannot wait to get my hands on it myself.
Mm-hmm.
And my genuine excitement for this, they didn't have to buy my genuine excitement. They just got it from me after they've told me about the project.
Exactly. It's just, it's a genuine thing for me to say, I can't wait for this shit to drop because it's amazing.
Yeah. On top of the thing, right, that they've created airship combat rules, which is what they wanted to do. They've created environmental rules so they can set their airship combat in those environments. Okay, makes sense. But okay, what do you need to build an airship? Well, you need a crew. So they had to include crew rules and morale rules. Okay, now obviously we want people to make their skyship their own. We just don't just want to put one stat block in. So we have to basically include a shipbuilder.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now we've basically got that. And now we also include obviously specific character options to make you engage with the content of this game in a different way. So we've got that. And then on top of all of that, they've decided to create an application that lets you build your ship on the web.
Yeah, that's just... Whew.
What the hell? They've put so much work into their stuff.
Yeah.
And it's deserving to be promoted like we are doing. That comes out tomorrow, but we're still in the recap of today's episode. So what did happen in your week?
Well, one of my D&D sessions got cancelled, so no D&D for me.
The worst.
Yep.
It happens.
And it was on the day I helped friends of mine move, still the same friends. So yeah, I was looking forward to a nice evening of just shits and giggles, throwing some dice, and hoping they will land on the right number, but don't.
And then
just
you got
as
hit in the
usual.
face by someone not being able to make it.
Exactly. But yeah, on top of that, I am sick. That's It gets better slowly, but it drags. It drags. But other than that, nothing much happened, actually. How about you?
I was about to make a very bad joke. As you said, it drags. I said, where's Dave Bautista? So that's how my week has been going. You might be able to realize that I've been sleep deprived, stressed, and completely a complete lunatic thanks to my exam phase, which is now over.
Oh,
so
I noticed.
I am getting better.
That's good. By the way, how did your exam go?
Well, that's the fun story, by the way.
Oh boy.
So my exam was on Friday at noon, at exactly noon. So I arrived like 20 minutes early, right? To make sure that even if like a bus has a malfunction, I can just walk to the university if I have to or something. Nothing happened on the way there. So that was good. Then while the exam was supposed to take place, someone else had taken the room that we booked for our exam to write their exam.
Okay.
Now, all the students gathered outside the room. That's where our exam is taking place in like 10 minutes. Or 5 minutes. Then a dude came out because when the group of students is together in this tiny room, it gets louder, right? It's the normal human effect of the more people are in one place, the louder the place gets. Yeah. And then a dude came out, could you be quiet? We're writing an exam here. And our professor goes, okay, but we have an exam there in 5 minutes. And he goes, no, you don't. And we're like, yes, we booked the room. Check the calendar. And then he checks the calendar and sees, oh shit, you have booked the room. We don't. This exam is still going for at least an hour, right? So they would be cutting an hour into our time, which is also obviously cut off at 2 p.m. because then another exam is taking place in that room that has booked the room. And well, let's just say that the dude was very, 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 very flustered that he basically made a very big mistake. That could have basically meant maybe one of the two groups has to reschedule their exam. And the one that is already writing obviously cannot reschedule their exam. But obviously we weren't letting it slide that we will storm this room in basically 5 minutes because it's ours. Because we have an exam as well. Where we basically made it work by shifting the whole schedule an hour or so back. So the other exam also had to wait an hour extra. And after that, nothing happened anymore. So yeah, we got to the exam an hour late, which is obviously very fun when some people have exam anxieties.
Hi there.
That's not something you want to hear. Basically, nothing bad happened. It worked out in the end, which it always will. But for me, I'm sitting there and thinking to myself, oh God, this is so fucking funny. Like I am totally sitting there with this big grin on my face. Yeah, okay, fun. Fun. Because right, if the exam gets rescheduled, there's so much you as a student can ask for that no one can say no to anymore, right? You can say, I want 5 bonus points just for having the exam rescheduled, period. So much fun. There's theoretically so much stuff you can do. And I was just thinking about, oh, this is gonna be so much fun. Well, it worked out. We got to the room at like 1 p.m. And yeah, it was a very easy exam. It was so fucking easy. After like 20 minutes, I was done. So that's that. Yeah, and then I also had TTRPG sessions. Right, I had one on Tuesday, my Tyranny of Dragons game, where my players finally took to the skies on the back of the Silver Dragon Elia. And now they are flying to the Metallic Dragon Council while making a short stop at the Star Mountains. At least that's where they're guessing they're going, to cure one of the players of his demon pact.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, nothing much happened. It was a roleplay session that had a lot of fun stuff happen in it.
Yeah, love those. Oh, I just remembered, I totally forgot about the stress of moving and being sick and shit. We had a session of Cyberpunk.
Yes.
On Sunday.
We did indeed.
That was a lot of fun. A lot of stress, but a lot of fun. And yeah, where our group agreed to break into a science facility to get some sort of information about something.
Okay.
Yeah, we cased the place, blah 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 blah. Some minor incidents. One of our players nearly got zapped to death from being alive because they thought they were dead but weren't. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And on the same night we tried to infiltrate that building. Or we are currently infiltrating that building. Mm-hmm. And my character as the Netrunner is trying to get rid of the cyber security, open the locks and all of that stuff from the outside. But I encountered a black ice program which basically melted my brain down to a mush. So yeah, 3 of my stats are currently sitting at a 1. I am bleeding everywhere and just not being able to do anything for a long time. We'll see.
We'll see.
But it didn't feel great to get your mind melted by a program.
Well, yeah, that's the world of cyberpunk, right?
Yeah.
By the way, I just got my exam results back, literally this minute.
Okay.
Yeah, best of the class.
Yeah, perfect.
Full points.
Yeah, congratulations.
So yeah. Sorry, I just saw the email pop up on my screen to the right, and I was like, okay, I need to check.
I totally get that. But yeah, that was basically the cyberpunk session for the point of view of my character, trying to find out some information, getting past the security, and getting mind melted.
I mean,
love it.
It was a very fun session of you guys doing stuff that I thought was okay. It was a session filled with you guys focusing on stuff that I didn't think that you guys would focus on and would do. You made an elephant out of a mouse with some of the problems at the beginning.
Probably.
Like the thing is, like there was a locked door. Oh fuck, we need to get through the locked door. How do we get through the locked door? Like, okay, yeah, sure, I know locked doors can be a problem, but
especially for TTRPG groups, right?
Like I had a lot of harder challenges planned for the later stages where I cannot think of how will you get through those if you cannot figure out how to get through a locked door?
I don't know.
It's also, again, unfair to call your TTRPG group stupid in these instances, which I'm not doing. I just didn't think that you guys would have such a problem with, oh fuck, this is a public place. What do we do? Help.
Yeah, and I mean, doors are kind of the enemy for every TTRPG group that I've GM'd for or played in. Doors are just the obstacle, period.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but I've witnessed it from both sides of the screen, and it's always the enemy for every group.
It's always. Yeah, it's true. It could be a very fun episode topic if I ever figure out why.
Doors. Just about doors.
Yeah. Like, why is it? And I just cannot figure it out.
Yeah.
But okay. I think with that, we're finished for today's recap and can jump into our episode on morality. Good versus bad. And if you should, as a storyteller, make a story about good versus bad or not. Hey listener, how are you enjoying the show so far? Tell us about it in whatever way you see fit. Go to our social media pages and add us or DM us about your favorite episode of the show. We would love to hear from you on what impact our show might have had on your home games. Or you could review us on your podcast app of choice and leave us a nice message with a 5-star review. And if you want to go above and beyond, bring a friend into the fold. Tell them about our show and refer us to them so they can get a piece of the pie as well. Thank you for listening to DoubleDM and joining us on this incredible journey.
So, Emil, I was thinking recently, I have a session of my campaign coming up soon, or one of my campaigns coming up again soon.
One of the many ones.
Yeah, exactly. I was thinking, they are right in front of a confrontation with one of the evil guys. And that got me thinking about what is good, what is evil, and what isn't, and blah, 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 and how we portray that in TTRPGs.
Yeah.
And then I compared it to my earlier renditions of campaigns when I started, where it was pretty clear cut. This is good, this is bad, and you are the good guys. You have to defeat the evil, blah, 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 blah. And now it's more of a, hey, this guy does maybe evil things, but not from his perspective and for a reason. Is that evil? Is that not more of a grayscale and a more something of they are able to discuss whether it is evil or not?
Yeah.
And that's something that I wanted to talk to you about this morality in TTRPGs and good versus evil all of that.
Okay.
Basically. So my first question would be, is it something or was it something like this for you as well, with starting out more of a black and white situation and then going to a more of a grayscale or discussing or ability to discuss whether it's good or bad? Or is it, what's the deal with your
I get what you mean, right? The thing that when you tell a story and you as a storyteller basically don't actively say this person bad, this person good. It's up, who knows what happens, blah, 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 right? I have a fun example for this, and this is going to be my contact campaign. Long-time listeners know what that is, know my relationship with the system, but that started as my first ever real personal campaign as a game master. It made me who I am today as a game master. It was the first campaign I ever started and was the first campaign I ever finished. It ran for nearly 5.5 to 6 years. And it survived a whole lot of stuff as a campaign. And it started as, you are a group of agents sent by the state, by an underground secret organization, keeping the world safe from aliens. And that's where it started. You're the agents. You're supposed to protect the world. Sounds pretty fucking good, right? Like how you would label someone as good. They're protecting people that don't know any better from evil, bad things. But the system alone had a very interesting way already. So because the system is called Contact, it was not about necessarily killing all other things that you make contact with. It was supposed to be, you're the type of people that get called if you have to make first contact with aliens and paranormal things. These agents then decide what they want to do and decide on how they should do it after protocol, establishing communication first, exchanging stuff. And if it comes to combat, yes, it comes to combat. And then the agents are supposed to kill. But the first instinct shouldn't be killing. And that already was interesting. Because, right, it didn't necessarily say everything these agents are going to be encountering is going to be evil. The system had the same problem as D&D, personally for me, as that a lot of it, a little bit less than D&D, you could say, revolved around combat. They had these intricate combat rules. They had a long list of armory and weaponry. And, right, that led players somewhat passively to combat is important and we should engage in combat with aliens. It's us versus them. We are the good guys because we are protecting the Earth from these evil aliens. And that's where the campaign started. The campaign started with, you're the good guys, you're the agents protecting Earth, and you're encountering all these paranormal activities and they're somehow connected, blah, 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 campaign. Then I introduced the big bad evil guy in the campaign, and he was this shrouded in mystery person in a black robe, never showing their face, talking about destruction, I am evil, and nothing can stop me, and what I do is righteous. But that is not how the campaign finished. The campaign finished in a completely different way. The campaign became from these, you're the agents protecting the Earth, to you're the chosen ones of fate. Fate has chosen you for whatever goddamn reason, brought you together to decide what happens after basically the collapse of everything. Because you're going to be the only beings that are able to survive the collapse of everything. That villain I introduced about that is evil and shrouded in a black mist and blah, blah, blah. He was also part of the chosen ones. And he was also brought together with party in different ways. And in that instance, he wasn't just bad anymore. He was doing the same thing the players were doing, just in a completely different way. And when the players met him at first, he was very much still a bad guy. And I'm going to say it, he was still a bad guy. He was killing people. He was doing evil things. But there became a lot more reasoning and morality behind it. It wasn't just he's evil because I have to have an evil villain because my players are the good guys and someone needs to be evil so the good guys can be good guys. He was still evil, but the thing about him was he knew it. He didn't think that he deserved redemption. He was twisted, he was dark, he was bad, but he always knew that. And he accepted it. He wasn't thinking of himself as the good guy. And he wasn't even the villain of the campaign. The villain of the campaign was the goddess of fate fate that sent the players on this quest to collect all shards of fate and defeat this evil guy in the first place, because she wanted the power for herself. And she was the actual prime evil of the campaign, because she's the reason everything was the way it was. She was the one misleading the players. She was the one with real evil intentions. But the thing about her was, right, I had two villains basically. One of them was pure evil, but never did evil. The other one wasn't pure evil, but did all the evil things. And with that, I basically asked my players a question: who is the real evil here? Now, my players found the right answer. I'm going to say it this way because this is the answer they chose. It's not the only right answer, and we can discuss at length for years and years to come the morality of this. I am not going to do it. They said, well, first of all, both of you are bad because the ends do not justify the means, and your ends are just pure evil. Right? One of them had evil ends and evil means. One of them had a good end, but evil means.
Yeah.
And my player said, both doesn't work. Mr. Anti-Hero here, you deserve to be punished, but we will grant you your wish with the power that we have now as the gods of fate, which made you do the things you did. We will grant you the wishes. We will grant you the wishes that led you to do the things you did.
Yeah.
To the other one, no, we're just going to punish you. You're not going to get anything.
And I think this is an interesting thing that happens or happened to me over time. Not just creating villains that just do evil for no reason or just for an evil reason or whatever, but have a reasoning behind why they do it. Even if the reasoning is evil itself or could be classified as evil from the heroes or the protagonist's standpoint, it just makes them feel more alive rather than just a boilerplate evil being that needs to be there to be the antagonist. But I rather than created antagonists rather than just evils.
Yeah.
And I think this is a distinction that you should or could make between something someone or something being the antagonistic part of the campaign or something or someone being the evil part of the campaign, because they are not necessarily the same thing. Because an antagonist always, or at least in my perception of it, has some sort of reason why they do the things they do, how they approach the problems, in what ways. And having that reason just makes them more susceptible for more or gives the players more options to deal with, because you have basically a different toolbox of what ends you want to choose for that for your antagonist once you bested them or whatever, right? Because then like your players as the new gods of fate now had the power to decide, do we grant them their wish or do we not? But that only is possible because they had a reason and something more in the background that was discovered. If it's just, he just killed people, period, no reasoning, no nothing, then it's pretty easy or pretty standard what players do, usually.
I mean, the thing about my campaign also was, right, everything was destroyed. The only things that existed after the fact were the player characters. Nothing else existed. With that, I asked more than the question, which of these two is the actual bad guy, right? I also asked, what even is morality? What even is good? What even is evil? Because it doesn't exist anymore. When you now create something, dear players, because you're able to, how do you mold it? And giving someone that power asks them the question, are you gonna change something about the way it was and are making it better or worse? In whose eyes?
Exactly.
Only the in-game perspective and the story perspective. My players were just like every other human being and living being, imprinted with the experiences they had. So when these player characters become the gods of fate and start creating new realities, new universes, new worlds, they're gonna imprint those worlds with their own bias. Because that is what happens when you create something. That is what happens when you have the power to create something. You create it always with your own bias. Which is a very fun meta commentary for this episode even, because when you as a game master write your villain, when you write your world, when you write everything, you imprint a bias on it, yours. And I'm gonna say it, everyone has a bias.
Yeah.
And if you're like me, which is a white boy from a privileged country, I have to watch my own bias, that I'm not gonna do something fucked up with it. An example that I gave Niels when we talked about this episode was, like, theoretically I could, but I just don't want to because that's bad, is my players are heroes from a wealthy nation sent out to smash down the tribal chieftain of one of the tribes in a new land so it can be claimed as part of the motherland. That's colonization at its finest.
Yeah.
And that's a story I never want to tell because my players aren't the good guys in that instance. There are stories that glorify colonization, period. That paint the heroes from the wealthy nation as the good guys. Yes, because from the colonizing nation, they are the good guys. But from the other perspective, they clearly are not. And to broaden this once again, when you create something, should and also kind of have to make sure to check your own bias. You can't erase it, but you can make a conscious effort to stop doing colonization stories or to make sure that your colonization stories are sensitivity checked, culturally appropriate, or do not appropriate culture. You have a bias. Knowing that bias is gonna be really handy because you might not be able to turn it off completely, but you're able to make sure that you do not imprint the bias of a rich nation from the West good, small island tribe bad. You cannot do that, period. That's bad.
Yeah.
And anyone who wants to tell me otherwise, I don't want to hear it.
Yeah, I just think knowing that you have a bias and knowing what biases they are actively helps you in even subconsciously trying to not erase but hinder these influences. Just the fact that you know which biases you have, because everyone has, it's just a thing, helps you to prevent those influences to make awful stories. But I think one thing that you mentioned, which is a huge thing when we talk about morality and good versus evil and blah, blah, blah in TTRPGs, is the point of perspective.
Yes.
Because everything in this regard is subjective. Everything.
The heroes from that wealthy empire see themselves as the good guys. You as the game master writing that story or preparing that campaign, you are a step away from them. You need to look at the other side and you need to realize that from that perspective, they cannot be the good guys. They cannot be. I want to get away from the colonization example because I don't think I am that qualified or even at all qualified to really talk about this. It's just an example that came up in my head and I really wanted it to get out there. But yeah, perspective. For example, my villain that had good intentions maybe, but did very bad things for them, right? He justified it by, when I am the god of fate, I can undo every single thing I did. Now, that on the base level seems reasonable, believable, somewhat. Because his perspective was, for example, right, his story was, I was wronged by this goddess of fate. I was made into this being that cannot die while my family was slaughtered. I survived. I didn't want to. So I am gonna become the villain you want me to be. And when I've finished, when I have won, I'm gonna undo everything. I'm gonna remove myself from the equation, make myself a normal human being that I wanted to be, and return back to the point before everything happened. We can discuss if that's good or bad, and if that's an intention that should drive you to doing bad things, right? The thing is, when you write your villains about the perspective thing, really, really ask yourself, could this be something that drives someone to do the most vile things that I can imagine? Kill another human being, for example. Could this really drive them to do that? And then you can also look at the real world and see some people are just fucking crazy and like killing other people. So I don't need to actually have a big reason. I don't need to have this grand storytelling reason. I can just have a murderer That's okay. There are people out there that enjoy that. And that's the thing. Niels, I'm going to ask you a question about something that I've heard a lot of times when talking about villains in the TTRPG space. One of the advices I've always heard, I've asked the question a few times on the online, and I've always had the same advice come at me at some point, probably in the first 5 minutes of asking the question even. Is the statement, in your opinion, true or false? The villain is always the hero of their own story.
I wouldn't say so. Not necessarily. Because it depends on what the villain does and what he wants to do. Because like in your example, I don't think your other champion of fate saw themselves as the hero of the story.
No, he knew he was the evil guy.
Exactly. And this is the thing. Doing evil things, even from your own perspective, doing evil things for a good reason still doesn't make you the hero of the story. Or it doesn't let you yourself view yourself as the hero of your own story. So no, not necessarily. It can be so, but it doesn't have to be. That would be it's not a yes or no kind of answer, sadly, but that's my trademark, I guess. The classic "it depends" thing.
It depends. It always depends. But I think, right, when I heard the advice for the first time, it sounds reasonable, right? But I think it only sounds reasonable because of the underlying actual base statement made and not what it actually says. Because what it actually says is this person thinks they are always right. They have to be. And no, a lot of people know that they are doing bad things and don't think that the things they're doing is right. And also the statement isn't necessarily saying that that has to be the thing. But for me, the statement underlying says this person has a reason. This person is justifying to themselves what they're doing. And that's true. I think that this person always needs justification to do the stuff they want to do because we as people, we might be doing some stuff on a whim, but there's always still some reasoning behind it.
Exactly. Having a reason is not necessarily seeing yourself as the hero.
Yeah.
That's a completely different thing.
Yeah.
And one example that just came to my mind is Walter White in Breaking Bad.
Interesting, yeah.
Because I don't think he sees himself as the hero of his own story, especially in the beginning.
I mean, Breaking Bad as a show it's not about meth cooking.
No.
It's about this hubris of Walter White wanting way too much.
Exactly. But the way he started out, he had a reason to do the things that he did, even though he knew it was a wrong thing to do.
And then he became more and more obsessed with this. He loved what he did. And more he justified it to himself and became the hero of his story.
Exactly.
In season 3 and 4. And in 5, everything around him came crashing down, showing him that you might think yourself the hero, and you're still the protagonist of the story, but what you did was bad, and now the consequences are catching up to you.
Exactly. And I think that this is not necessarily good, but it's definitely an example of the thing that we just talked about, is you having a justification for the things that you do, even though you know they are bad, and then get so invested in that that you have to justify it even more, that you at some point might become the hero of your own story.
But Walter White is such a good example for this because Walter White, as a character, he had very, very personal goals from the beginning. Right at the end, he wanted to be the meth baron, whatever the fuck, right? He wanted greatness in this industry. And he also got it, by the way. But it all ended with him still. But right, the thing is, at the beginning, it was a very personal goal. And it drove him to become what he is now. And that exactly shows you that your villain doesn't have to be an evil archmage from the beginning. He can also just start out as a mage that wanted to figure out a way to heal his mother. And maybe he even succeeded, but he was already driven so far off the edge in desperation that he just saw no way back anymore. Or that he even enjoyed the dark magic he performed. And at some point, the dark magic corrupted him. But also, the thing about Walter White is, because something that I've noticed in TTRPGs as a personal thing, and also in other people's things, I don't know about you, Niels, but most of my campaigns are about saving the world. From evil destruction, evil things, blah, 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 domination, blah, 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 blah. I'm not saying that all of them are necessarily the destruction of a world or a country, but they're always this grand thing of saviors. And that's mostly because my villains have a goal to destroy or control. Walter White also had a goal of control over the meth market, maybe, but generally, he's a very different type of villain that I might have to use more in TTRPGs. It's not necessarily, that doesn't need heroes to answer basically his villainous call by saving everything from him. I'm thinking about this when you create a villain, create something that I would call a villainous call. And that is something about this villain that the heroes or the player characters have to answer. This villain wants to destroy the world. The villainous call would be, someone try and stop me from doing this. Someone try and save the world from me. That's the villainous call.
Yeah.
And that's basically the thing that your players are supposed to do. The way your villainous call should be phrased, if you actually write it down, shouldn't really implement any kind of suggestions on how to do it, right? The villainous call shouldn't be kill me to save the world, but only save the world. And that simple statement gives you the point of conflict that is important for your villain, right? Because as with TTRPGs, everything is only important when it hits the players and the table.
Yeah.
And that villainous call is the point of connection for your players. This villain as an entity in TTRPGs needs you guys, the players, to do something to stop them.
Yeah, and I think that's what you called the villainous call works pretty well together with the classic call to action.
Yeah.
Which might be more of a passive thing. We need someone to save us, something along those lines. The villainous call then would be try and stop me, and then the hero's answer would possibly be watch out, we're coming for you. So you have these three things: the hero's answer, the villain's call, and the call to action, basically. And I think these can open up this discussion about morality and good and evil, because the call to action is basically stating the problem that is currently there, or can state the problem that is currently there, or address it in some way. And then the villainous call is, depending on how it is phrased and what the villain says, or how the villain acts to say the things and all of that, then basically states the means of the whole interaction, but not necessarily showing the intent or the ends that they want to achieve. And then it's up to the heroes to decide through whatever or however they may find out about the ends, the means, whatever, how they want to answer that villainous call. And in what ways and in what intensity, I think.
Yeah. And I think very important to look in, as with TTRPGs, to look at the player characters here. How do they answer? Because how they answer is influenced by who their characters are, but also by the bias of who the player is. Right? My character is I don't know. Your players are gonna be answering this call in some different way. And this is also gonna provide you with material for the questions of morality in your campaign. Because your players might be doing something and you're going, wait, how are you any better than the villain now? You also just did something bad. You also just slaughtered a cave of goblins. Why? And then your players oftentimes will just start to justify what they did. Because, anything. But this exactly shows you that nothing is black and white. Nothing is good and evil. Is it always a matter of perspective, on whose side says what and from what angle are you looking at it? But at the same time, there is a few things that we should just agree on that are bad. And with that, I'm gonna say it the way it is, right? We talked about the hero is always the villain of his own story, and there always needs to be some complex reasoning, and they should be twisted, and maybe they are actually a good guy with good intentions, but bad means blah, 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 blah. And I say no. Sometimes it's fun to just defeat a prime evil that is just evil for the sake of being evil. I don't need my storytelling to always be this complex morale analysis of humanity. When I say that, I don't mean with that that you're able or allowed to just label something as evil because you want it to be evil. Coming in with a bias again. If you label the whatever thing evil because you say play it as evil, while in reality what it does is only just something that you think is evil because you've been taught that way, and maybe someone else will think differently because this evil hydra, whatever, this evil monster in the forest is only protecting its natural habitat. Why is that evil? Protecting where you live. That should be your prime right as a being, protecting your home. That should never be labeled as evil because it is your home. Now, we can talk about what means you take to defend your home, but generally the drive to protect the places where you feel safe is basically a base instinct.
Yeah.
You cannot label that as evil. And that's the thing. While I think it is, you don't need to have every campaign be a moral complex discussion. You can also just fight the evil thing because that's evil, but you always need to remember why it is evil. This being from beyond the veil of reality wants to destroy everything. You don't need to necessarily have more than a complex reasoning of this thing is just beyond this reality and has no need for this reality, so it can destroy it because it wants to. Then there doesn't have to be that much more complex reasoning behind it.
Yeah, as long as you remember why you think it is evil, or especially why you think it is evil. Yeah. Coming in with the bias again.
Yeah, I want to talk about especially, again, this labeling of good and evil, as I did before. But for example, D&D has a few things that I just don't like. One of them is alignment. But alignment is exactly what we need to talk about in this discussion, because it is putting into numbers, more or less, or putting into values your moral code. And for a game, for a character, I think it is not that bad to define that character's general moral code and standard. But it cannot be done in a 9-cell table that basically only has 2 axes, and one of them is lawful, chaotic, and the other is good and evil.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's way too narrow.
It's way too two-dimensional, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Obviously, I don't want people to think of better, bigger alignment systems, because I think that generally valualizing this thing is bad. What I think would be way more fun is to tell the player, write down a virtue that your character abides by and take your virtue. What is this character's greatest sin in their eyes? What is, make the moral codex specific for that character.
Exactly. Because I think morality in itself is a pretty shifting thing for each and every one, because just because, like in D&D with the alignment chart or cells or whatever, you are never only going to do lawful good things, because it depends on what you are doing, whether someone says this is good or bad. It's a shifting thing. You are moving in a range. And this range can be defined, but only by your character.
And the thing is, the amount of changing views I had in the last 3-4 years, the amount of stuff that shifted in my personal values and my personal views on the world is astonishing. That same goes probably even more so for a character that kills that kills dragons on a daily basis, more or less. That fights actual wizards, that sling around spells that could change and alter reality as we know it.
Exactly.
This person will have an ever-changing moral codex, and that needs to be a thing.
Yeah, or even if you are the wizard yourself. If you are able to change reality just because you want to, your moral codex is going to shift a lot.
One of the fun examples I always think about with this is the D&D has the spell Wish. What would stop a wizard that thinks that something should be done, that can cast Wish? Why wouldn't they just do it?
Exactly.
They have the power. Now someone can tell me, these wizards, they don't want to lose the power of that wish spell. Oh, fuck off with that. I know exactly that when there are 1,000 wizards that can cast the wish spell, theoretically in your world, one of them is gonna be the idiot that says, I hate money, I want to wish that money never exists anymore.
I'd be the idiot, probably.
Someone will be the idiot. That's the thing, right? And even if you say player characters are the only ones that are able to cast Wish, okay, cool, no problem. Your characters are gonna be dumb enough.
Yeah, I mean, if playing TTRPGs for a long time shows
when you have
anything.
the power to influence the whole world, to do the stuff that you think is right and don't do the stuff that you think is wrong, a lot of people have the drive to fucking do that. And now we can make a fun campaign idea out of that. One of the characters from the last campaign casted Wish and turned basically everything on its head, and now someone has to stop him again or rearrange everything to how it was. And that alone in itself could be a complex question of maybe it is better this way. Maybe it is not. Who is to say? Well, first of all, I'm going to say it. You do not have to always take a neutral stance as a storyteller. And I think it is even better if you don't take a neutral stance. Because one of the stories that I hate the most because sometimes people say when you look for inspiration in something, only look for the stuff you like. I say also look for the stuff you don't like. Because why don't you like it? And for me, that's the story of Sylas from League of Legends. So for those that are unaware, in League of Legends, there's a region in the lore of the game. There's a region called Demacia. This region is locking up mages, systematically killing them for being born with the power to cast spells. Now, the only person in that story that is ever really questioning that is Sylas, the character from the game. But he's also a deranged maniac, bloodlusty, and thirsty for revenge on everyone and the crown of this country. So who is to say who's good and bad, right? The one side is a country protecting its citizens by killing others, and the only person that is actually on the other side leading a rebellious cause is a bloodlusty maniac. Why the fuck did Riot decide to take a stance on this that says who's to say who's good and bad here? At least in the original parts of the story, they did that this way. The new Mage Seeker video game has done a very good job of portraying these characters way better and not making Sylas just a bloodlusty maniac that only wants to kill everyone. They made him an actually interesting character. But you as a storyteller, what you're supposed to learn from this is you don't always have to say, I'm taking a neutral stance. I'm just portraying both sides. No, if you think one side is clearly bad, just say it. You don't have to necessarily label them at every single step as evil. And they, as the side, can see themselves in your story as the righteous part, because that's what Demacia is doing. They are doing the righteous thing. This is correct what we're doing. You as a storyteller are allowed to say no, especially if you think that it's that's the reason.
Yeah.
You're allowed to put your own bias into that story, but again, check it. But please don't always say, who's to say? I don't know, make your own decisions. No, you're also allowed to imprint your decision.
And I think that this is an important thing to distinguish between what you as a storyteller think and what your characters of the story that you tell think, because there is a difference. Like in this example, Demacia thinks they are doing the right thing. If you are, as the storyteller, don't think that, put that in. But be aware of the difference between those two standpoints, because one is your own and one is the standpoint of a character from your game.
Yeah.
The same thing goes for TTRPGs. Your players think one thing. The BBEG, let's call them that, is just thinking a different thing. And you as a table then decide what you as a table think, as the storytelling persons. And the difference between what my character thinks and what I as a player think is something that you have to remember when you talk about morality, good versus evil, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, I think one important thing to say, since people have listened to this episode, they're probably feeling the same way I do. This is such a complex, hard topic to talk about. I want to retract that advice that we normally say don't think about it too much, because you should think about it. You shouldn't necessarily dissect every story that you come across and everything you create to make sure that it's the thing you want to say, because sometimes, it's okay to just say, this thing is evil because it's evil. Now let's just kill the evil monster. But you also really need to check your bias, especially if you're doing it for an audience, as an actual play, for example, or writing a story, a book for that matter. Check your fucking bias. And hire people that are sensitivity readers for your stories, or sensitivity listeners for podcasts, for example, that can tell you that what you're doing from a different perspective is sending a clear message. And that message isn't the one that you want to send. Then you need to change it. Because while your storytelling might still be complex, there's still an imprinted message in it. And that also goes for your home campaigns. And that imprinted message is imprinted with your bias. And even if it's just for fun, if you're playing for just fun, remember that having fun by why slaughtering the local goblin population is somewhat glorifying something bad. Sure, these goblins could be plunderers and bandits, and your players aren't necessarily slaughtering them, but only driving them away. That's something entirely different than just saying, yeah, you're going to be slaying a few goblins today. Yeah. Good and evil, morality, it's a difficult topic. This episode is very convoluted, in my opinion. Having now talked about it a long time. So yeah, just have fun playing, but please make sure that your fun isn't coming from a place of prejudice, cultural appropriation, and stereotypes. Yeah.
And with that, I don't have anything else regarding that matter.
I think that the best thing is to stop here. Yes.
Yeah.
Right. You can make this a lot complexer, and you're going to have different opinions from us out there. And yeah, again, the only thing I really want to give you for this episode is that little thought of, what am I actually saying with what I'm saying? What am I actually portraying? Can I make a better example? I want my players to feel like the good guys, but for that I need a bad guy. And then also please make an actual bad guy and not just someone that feels like a bad guy, because that's what you think is a bad guy. You can also make bad guys exist. Like, we have bad guys in the real world that you can look to. I'm not right. No, you can make one of your villains a merchant that is incredibly rich and trying to buy up free speech and controls a lot of magic power as well. I'm not saying who I'm talking about, but I think everyone can guess. So yeah.
With that, thank you all for listening, and see you on the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of DoubleDM. It appears you liked this one. What we had to say and our advice helped you. Why not show us how we helped you in a rating, or even write a review detailing us how we helped? You can do this on the platform that you are listening on right now. It's just a few clicks, doesn't take long, and helps us out. It gets us out there and our advice into more ears of more people. Thanks again for listening and joining us on this amazing journey. Have a great day, and see you on the next one. Bye-bye.